In today's episode of The Written Compass, I want to talk about a moment that I had with my client that really allowed her to tap into what she wanted to say in her words and let go of some of the things that were keeping her stuck. So I'm excited to share this episode. Yes, I have a fun title, Embody and Spew. You're going to learn exactly what I mean by that and more. So let's dive in. Hey, everyone. Shayna Hartman here, embodied writing coach, here for another episode of The Written Compass. So excited you're here. We are just trucking along. There's so many fun things happening whenever you are listening to this. For me, we are really into full swing of the fall season here in North Carolina, and it is wonderful. Still some warm days, but definitely feeling some need for extra layers, which is just fabulous for us. I'm curious how things are going with you, where you are. As always, want to make sure you let me know. Send me a message. I just like hearing from people who are listening to the podcast. And in today's episode, if you notice the title, it's quite interesting, but I'm going to explain. So first, I'm going to tell you a story like I often do. A couple of weeks ago, I was working with a client and she was really getting stuck in a couple of things. We were just getting started. She just joined the Embodied Writing Mastermind, and she's super excited about her book and getting her words out there. She just really feels connected to this idea of her writing a book. And in fact, she knows she has several books to write. And as we were going, she was asking some interesting questions that I was just making note of, being a good, connected, embodied coach, right? And one of the things that was coming up was like, what's my word count here? We were kind of focusing on a particular chapter. How long should this chapter be? And what about this section? Should I make it as much as the next section? Or, what about the whole book, right? Like there was just a lot of these questions around length. Then some questions were coming up as to why we want to focus on length. The reasoning was something around like, I want to make sure I'm expressing myself, thoroughly, but I also want to make sure I'm not too curt. And can you just feel what's showing up as you are listening to me describe what was happening with my client? I kind of described it as it feels like there's just this tug of war, this like tightrope that you really want to walk and make sure you don't fall off. And, we all have that. We want our writing to be good and we want people to like it and we want people to read it. And so when we think of, writing well and doing a good job at it, we often bring in these kind of somewhat arbitrary things that we think we're supposed to do. And so as we were talking, right, I just started asking her some questions around what she felt like she had learned. There was this story that was showing up that she wanted to share. And the story was great. It was powerful, super powerful story. And it's an ongoing story in her life, the relationship with a family member. So powerful. Like just to hear the story, the details, the play-by-play is just amazing. But when I started to ask her, after we had some of these like length questions and tightrope questions showing up, I started to ask her, what have you learned? What do you really want readers to know about these experiences you've had? What do you feel like is important? She got so connected to herself. And all of a sudden, this animated person was in front of me and was telling me, well, I've learned this, I've learned that, and here's what this means to me, and here's why this is important. And my job at that moment, I just knew, I felt it, was just to capture, because she was spewing. She got connected to herself, she got embodied, and it just flew out. And when I saw her do that, when I saw her body change and start to move and her shoulders were back and down and her arms were going and she could just go on and on and on and on about this, we realized right there that it had clicked. It wasn't the story. She needed to get connected to the so what behind the story, like what she's learned. And when she did that, her body responded and it was just so expressive. There was no concern for length. There was no concern about whether we were expressing enough or not too much. And she just let it out. And then I said, this is where the title of the episode came from. I said, here's the deal. Your job, as far as where we are right now in your journey, your process, is to embody and spew. Embody and spew it. And she loved it. She was like, oh, I don't need to worry about Nope, you don't need to worry about that yet. Well, what if I go on too long? I said, that's why I am here. That's why our team is here. We're going to be the ones to rein you in if you're going off into tangents with your writing. We're going to be the ones who say, we wanted to hear more here if we feel like you're not expressing yourself enough. That's what our job is to give you eyes and give you perspective. But if you try all at the same time to come up with the words, make sure they're the right words, make sure they're the words that your readers are going to love and understand. If you try to do that all the time, every time you go to write something down, that is just too much pressure for yourself at once. Your job is to embody and spew. So, what does it look like to embody and spew? Right? We've talked about a lot of different strategies in this podcast, but I really want to support you in what are the ways, when do you feel most connected to yourself? What I mean by that is just there's a certain grounded presence within you when we get embodied. And people come to that state in so many different ways. Sometimes it is needing to go off and be in a quiet place or, out on a walk in nature or something like that. Sometimes it's in the midst of all the goings ons and maybe you hear a song or you have a special scent or a special piece of clothing, or maybe you just drop into a down dog in the middle of the kitchen. Finding those moments that help you get grounded and connected, anything that makes you feel connected to you, that's your embodiment. That's the thing that's going to support you in being embodied. In this moment, when it helped this client get embodied was just me being there to ask questions of her. She's a manifesting generator. She's someone who likes to respond. And once she gets that initial, kind of a prompt is what she called it, she was off to the races. That helped her get connected to herself. And what does spew mean, right? I almost titled this The Power and the Magic of Word Vomiting, because that's what I call it a lot, is when you are in those initial draft phases of writing, and I would say even sometimes later on as you're revising and needing to add more content or change your content, I can't say enough about just letting the words rip. Not censoring yourself, do the least amount of deleting and backspacing as possible. You're going to do it some because we're just natural. And if I write defiantly and I meant definitely and I recognize it, I'm just going to correct myself right in that moment, right? But doing your best, set a timer, do the writing sprints, go back and listen to the episode where we talk about all the different ways that you can get your words down. Do a writing sprint. Set a timer, set a word count, set a page count, whatever feels good for you, and just let it spew. And the thing is, the more that she did this, she's done a few drafts now of her writing, and we realized her initial word vomits were all about the story she felt like she wanted to tell. But she wasn't feeling really connected to it. She's like, okay, I wrote that, but I don't know where to go next. And it wasn't until she got back connected to the core message that she wanted to share that she had a very clear, I want to talk about this, this, and this. It was about 3 things. And then she now has a direction to go into each of those areas and spew some more. And guess what? That story, that initial thing that she wrote was not in vain. It had to be written. She had to get that out because it was such an important piece for her in her life. Now she gets to let that story come and support these 3 core messages that she has. Does that make sense? So embody and spew. What if your job was just to embody and let it rip? Embody and word vomit. I'm curious what shows up for you today. I know this is kind of an interesting, very informal way of talking about writing. And I love that. I think it's really important that we don't try to pretend like writing is fancy schmancy. It is dirty and messy and sweaty and tearful, and laughter comes and all of it at the same time. And we over here at Team Synergy with our embodied writing work, we are here for all of it. And we love that. So my friends, I want you to go out and just embody, get connected to yourself, and then let it rip. Just spew out the words and see what shows up. As always, I want to hear about what lands for you with this episode, what questions show up, all the good things. So be sure to share this, post it, and let me know. I look forward to hearing from you, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Written Compass. If you are enjoying this content, do me a favor and go and review the podcast. This allows me to share and get these messages out to the people who really need them, who we want to read their books in the future. You can also go and share your thoughts and tag me at @ShaynaHartman_ on Instagram. Again, this is just a way for us to get connected and share the writing love. And if you know that you are ready to write your book, that message that's been burning inside of you for a long time, then I want to talk to you. My team and I want to talk to you. Head on over to ShaynaHartman.com and click Work with Us. From there, you'll see an application to explore and see if writing your book is your next best step.